On behalf of the CIPA Emerging Professionals, I'd like to welcome you to the third part of our webinar series, which is Accessing Heritage Places from Home. And this webinar is specifically titled Information Systems Protecting the Past, Securing the Future. Ona Velekis will be the main moderator today, but first a few words from one of our collaborators at the National Trust for Canada, Chris Weeb.
Thanks so much, Becca. I'm Chris Weeb at the National Trust for Canada, and we're delighted to be collaborating with CIPA Emerging Professionals, NSERC Create program at Carleton University, and ICOMOS on this series of webinars about digital platforms for experiencing and monitoring heritage places. One of the National Trust programs is the Regeneration Works program, which you see on your screen, and it offers tools and training and support to communities across Canada and beyond. You can find these resources at some of these links on the screen. We're particularly thrilled at the National Trust about this series of webinars, and it's exciting for us because it brings together the international heritage community and helps to break down the silos between professionals, academics, and volunteers in the truly global heritage sector. Many thanks to all of the participants and moderators for bringing this together, and looking forward to a diverse and exceptionally global session today. Back to you, Becca.
Great, yeah, I would like to welcome Ona so that way she can start us off on our webinar and then introduce Mina.
Thank you, Becca. I would like to welcome all participants who are attending this webinar, Information Systems Protecting the Past, Securing the Future. And the speakers who answered to our call and are here with us. I'm really proud to be your moderator today. I would like to thank CIPA, Heritage Documentation, and its emerging professionals, the International Council of Monuments and Sites, ICOMOS, the National Trust for Canada, and the NSERC Create Heritage Engineering Program for supporting this event. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Mina Silver. Mina is a member of the Executive Committee of CIPA, and she is the chair for the Commission on Application of Recording, Documentation, and Information Management for Cultural Heritage. Mina, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Mina, you're muted.
Unmute. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay. Dear participants in different parts of the world, it is nice to see so many of you joining us today. I warmly welcome you on behalf of CIPA in this webinar for the CIPA Emerging Professionals. That is the third webinar, and today we deal with information systems. My name is Mina Silver, as Ona told, and I'm adjunct professor in the field of archaeology. And I come from Finland, where the time is now around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. CIPA Heritage Documentation, formerly Committee for Architectural Photogrammetry, is organizing this webinar. CIPA is a joint scientific committee of ICOMOS and ISPRS. ICOMOS is the International Council for Monuments and Sites, and ISPRS is International Society of Photogrammetry, Remote Sensing and Spatial Information Sciences. In CIPA, we are developing the best technical ways to protect and preserve cultural heritage. And we mainly concentrate on tangible heritage. We are bridging the gap between providers and users. We consist of technical experts like engineers, like photogrammetrists, surveyors, and cultural heritage professionals, including archaeologists, architects, art historians, restorers, conservators, etc. In the new CIPA structure that was launched last autumn in Avila in Spain, we have 3 commissions that take care of the CIPA activities. I lead Commission 1 of CIPA as chairman, and as Ona told, Dr. Ona Vilekis is a co-chair. I have been active in CIPA since 2003 and in the executive board over 10 years. My bridge to CIPA was my GI expert education that I finished in 1998, and since have been involved in archaeological surveying, mapping and GIS. And I wrote as the principal author the archaeological section for Manual of Geographic Information Systems, published by American Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. And in the slide here, you see a kind of process of GIS, which I was developing for Egyptian Antiquities Information System, and one Finnish organization actually then develop it further. And you can see the stage which GIS was in around 2000, so 20 years ago. Commission 1 with application of recording, documentation and information systems for cultural heritage is exactly the subject, the theme that we have today. The other 2 deal with education and dissemination, namely Commission 2, that is led by Professor Grazia Tucci from the University of Florence. And technical issues are taken care of by Commission 3, that is led by Professor José Luis Lerma from the Polytechnical University of Valencia. Thank you again for joining us. I wish we shall have a fruitful webinar, and now I open the floor to the others.
Okay, thanks to Chris and to Mina for their welcome addresses. The first panelist presenting will be Ona, so I would like to introduce her briefly. Dr. Ona Vilekis is a researcher at the Institute of Archaeology at UCL and at SIMS Lab at Carleton University. Originally trained as an architect, her research explores the way in which digital technologies contribute to policy development, standards for documentation and monitoring of heritage management. Ona is a member of the CIPA Executive Committee and co-chair for the upcoming ICOMOS Scientific Symposium. Also, since 2010, Ona has been actively serving as advisor to the UNESCO Silk Roads World Heritage Project. Ona, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll share my screen now. Is it okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So today I would like to give you a short introduction about information systems for cultural heritage and share with you 3 examples of my experience in Central Asia. We are probably familiar with Venice in Italy and its recurrent flooding every year that is putting at risk this historic city, but probably you're less familiar with Central Asia. Central Asia is really diverse and complex, and its cultural heritage reflects this. There are millions of historic buildings, structures, archaeological sites, and cities within a vast and diverse landscape. We know it more as the area of the Silk Roads. We also know this region as the stands, including the countries of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. You see the region here in the map. Usually quite dry and desertic, also many factors such as agriculture, urban expansion, rural depopulation, and climate crisis are threatening our cultural heritage in Central Asia. In order to protect it, the first step towards monitoring and managing change of these sites is having a proper understanding of what we have. But this diversity and complexity makes the management of information of these heritage resources quite difficult. So what are the challenges we're facing to document this change? First, for example, we have a large amount of baseline information that is required to be integrated. We also have a variety of data formats, types, languages, maybe collected due to different national documentation procedures, standards in cartography, conservation strategies, and policies. There is also limited use of advanced technologies and lack of technical expertise. For example, the use of GIS, documentation and recording of techniques and management. We also face complexity of the information analysis of large data sets and large number and coordination of stakeholders involved at various management levels and under different management and legal systems. In this way, information systems are becoming our best friends, and nowadays during the COVID times, even more, and I'll explain why. So information management systems can aid in the collection, storage, analysis, and dissemination of the gathered information. We are moving from GIS and database management systems towards more web mapping and geospatial content management systems. Some of them are versatile tools, and they can integrate multi-layer spatial and non-spatial data. This means we have a database, and we can also know where these features are located. Some examples we see here are the Mega Jordan, the State of Conservation System for World Heritage of UNESCO, and the Arches. The Arches is an open source, web and GIS-based information management system that was developed by the Getty Conservation Institute and the World Monuments Fund. If you are further interested, there is an ongoing research carried out by Professor Florian Petrescu and supported by our CIPA commission that I'm sharing with Mina, as Mina presented it. And the database you see here aims to serve as worldwide glossary of the use of GIS technology in cultural heritage. So I'll start with one of the examples. The first one is the Uzbekistan Geographic Information System that was developed for 3 cities. Those are Bukhara, Chankala, and Samarkand. The example you see here on the screen is the one of Bukhara, where we surveyed more than 4,000 houses. So it did require a lot of field survey for many years, but the information is there, and it could be accessed remotely. So we can use it actually now. This information could also be updated, and you can use different backgrounds layers, such as updated satellite images or orthophotos that can be that can come from aerial photogrammetry taken from our famous drones. You see here how the city has been changing through the years. And later you can identify what changes has happened to the urban fabric, for example. You can get definitely better resolution with drones these days, although satellite images are getting much better with really high resolution. My second project is the Silk Road's Cultural Heritage Resource Information System. It was developed to support the preparation of the Silk Road's serial transnational World Heritage nomination in Central Asia. What is relevant to highlight here is that the system was developed with our local partners, who were our end users. And all design was based on the requirements and trials we had during many years. The system, as an innovation, also included a monitoring tool integrated to the nomination dossier. And for those who are not acquainted with World Heritage, the dossier is the document submitted to the country to nominate a site as World Heritage. So you see the screen now, as complicated as this graph will look like for some of you. This is what the developers turn it into. So this is a user-friendly system where information required for the nomination dossier could be added by anyone sitting anywhere with basic skills, and finally exported as a PDF. So it's a collaborative platform as well. And here you can see this is the risk assessment and monitoring tool. The whole system can be accessed, as I said, from wherever you are, but of course you need to have internet. My final example is the Central Asian Archaeological Landscapes project. It is funded by Archaeology, and it's what I'm actually working on. It is a UCL project that aims to map and create online open access georeference digital inventory that will enable access to a range of cultural heritage across Central Asia, including the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China. So our main partners are the International Institute of Central Asian Studies in Samarkand, and in Xi'an we have the Northwest University and the ICOMOS International Conservation Center. We also have a large number of teams in all the 6 regions and the countries in Central Asia working as well with us, and the base UCL team in London. So we're not only mapping settlements, but entire landscapes with features like paths, roads, and field systems, and not only dots, but also entire complexes such as cities. So you see the complexity. And if you see the map of the areas we are mapping, it's a really vast area. So basically, all documents are available in different archives are being scanned while we talk, and those are done by our local partners. And after they've been digitized, they will be added to the arches. So we are setting up also our own archive system for the cloud project, and this online information management system that I previously talked about of the Getty. And so here we can manage and search for data, and later will be open to the public as well. The system will allow to systematically add metadata and information, as I mentioned, and link to the sites. Also, one of the advantages is that it's multilingual. Additionally, we are creating a QGIS geo package and using all the advantages of the system for data analysis. So, for example, here the team run by Dr. Marco Nevia has been georeferencing corona datasets. And here I'm not talking about the corona you're all thinking about, but this corona is the America's first satellite program devoted to photography surveillance of the Soviet Union, People's Republic of China, and other key areas. So now this corona is open and available for download. So you see here, for example, the water bodies classified in a Landsat 8 image were superimposed to the corona from 1970s, and you can see the difference of the water course. So you see how you can analyze how the water is changing in the region. Now the team during lockdown is working at home and identifying endangered structures as well, like the one you see above. And then somehow getting lost by the bank, or could get lost by the bank erosion caused by the artificial flooding of the Amudaya River. If you want more information about the project, you can follow us or contact us here. So let's recap. Digital technologies are supporting tools for protection of management and preservation of cultural heritage. understanding heritage, mapping and inventory, for policy making, for condition assessment, and scientific analysis, managing and monitoring change. A combination of digital technologies together with management and legislative frameworks is essential for its success. To conclude, well-established documentation workflow and strong capacity building have proved to be equally important than any capability of the systems. Knowledge and awareness of all stakeholders increases after receiving capacity building on the use of the system. So this validates the mission of ICOMOS and all heritage experts. And another lesson learned is about sustainability. So data and metadata should not be managed centrally. I think probably you can ask yourselves what would happen when you all you have burns down. So it's a nightmare, right? And this is the nightmare of any researcher, and it happened to me. So the photo you're seeing is where all my information of my Silk Road CRIS project was stored. Lucky us, we had a backup of the data, but I'm not sure if you have one of yours. So one big advice is after we finish this webinar, run, get a new hard disk and save all your information, because it could also happen to you. Thank you very much.
Ona, thank you for that very lovely talk and for moderating this entire webinar, as well as for that very important public safety announcement about backing up your data. I think a decent amount of us have run into issues before where we've wished we had saved things on multiple devices before something had happened. I'd like to introduce our next speakers. It's Gamze Dane and Martina Massini. Dr. Gamze Dane is an assistant professor and the chair of information systems of the built environment faculty at TU Eindhoven. Her areas of expertise include urban planning and GIS. Gamze's research interests focus on sustainable transitions of urban environments by integrating econometric models and information technologies into urban models. Dr. Martina Massari is a postdoctoral researcher at the Department of Architecture of the University of Bologna. She's currently a research fellow for the Horizon 2020 European ROC project, which stands for Regeneration and Optimization of Cultural Heritage and Creative and Knowledge Cities. Her research topics are the intermediate places between social innovation practices and urban planning, and the relationships among those urban practices, planning, data, and urban space. Without further ado, Gamze and Martina.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna start. Good afternoon, everyone from Europe. I am Martina Massari from the University of Bologna, and I'm here with Gamze Dane from the Technical University of Eindhoven. And we will present today some of the results of the European project ROC, in which we work together. So first, I'd like to give a general overview of the project. Then I'll pass the word to Gamze to explain in detail the part that links cultural heritage to information systems. As said, ROC stands for Regeneration and Optimization of Cultural Heritage in Creative and Knowledge Cities. It is a research and innovation action from Horizon 2020 that has a goal to demonstrate how cultural heritage in specific historical European centers can contribute in triggering the transition to both sustainable and creative districts. The project started in 2017 for 44 months of work. It is coordinated by the Municipality of Bologna, together with the University of Bologna as scientific coordinator. And the consortium includes 13 EU countries and 10 European cities, among which 7 role model cities, which are Athens, Eindhoven, Cluj-Napoca, Turin, Vilnius, Liverpool, and Lyon, and 3 replicator cities, Bologna, Skopje, and Lisbon. The consortium is quite big. It's made of 32 partners from all over Europe. It ranges from university, private and public entities, and city European networks. ROC methodology is based on the application of an integrated approach at both local and international level, and is based on sharing and mentoring a repertoire of heritage-led initiatives from the role model cities to the replicator cities. And this is transferred through work shadowing visits, roadmap, webinars, etc. And these actions are materialized in replicator cities through on-site interventions, data collection, mapping, and collaborative information systems. So the idea of ROC is to move from a linear towards a circular, if not a reticular, approach. That ROC defines research, action, research, which is evidence-based, applied research, making use of urban living labs as main research device. So in order to manage this complexity of ingredient concerning cultural heritage, the project has been supported by a series of technologies, some of which will be shown later, and is aimed at collecting data, monitoring the replication action, and to, of course, derive some knowledge to be embedded in the research itself. And together with the technologies, ROC is supported by a centralized system of data collection and processing, which is the platform ecosystem. It is a central interoperable platform that collects data thanks to a series of processing tools, which in turn are fed by many data providers. So in the next section, we will show you in particular one of these tools, the atlases, and its relationship with the various data providers. I'll pass the word to Gamze.
Thank you. So from here on, I will explain some of the ROC web platforms and the use of digital tools within ROC. And as Martina mentioned, Atlas is one of the web platforms of a ROC project. And one of the aims is to map the cultural assets and their potential in heritage districts in replicator cities. And then these assets are matched with the ROC actions and the ROC teams. And another aim of Atlas is to make a dynamic inventory of successful heritage-led regeneration initiatives of the role model cities, and then link the actions of the replicators with the regeneration initiatives of role models. So on the left side, you can see an example image. Athens and Bologna are matched in the theme of cultural heritage accessibility. And on the right, you can see how each cities are linked to each other in terms of the ROC teams. And as the project evolved from the start, because we are on the third year, and Atlas also started to include the mapping of the changes in each action, which I will show in a bit. So here you see the Atlas interface. So if you want to see it for yourself, you can also go to the website. That is, the link is at the bottom. So the cultural assets are mapped, and then they are linked to ROC themes with the color coding. And when you select an action on these cultural assets, then you would see the description of the action. And if you click the view full story, then the changes from the start of the ROC project for that case are mapped in that story, and these are mapped into with the use of text, videos, and images, and so on. And overall, the Atlas has assisted drafting a baseline of the current situation for the replicator city, so understanding of the assets and the matches with the action. And after these mapping activities, replicator cities revise their intervention plans, and they use adaptive reuse, temporary use of public spaces, and heritage buildings, and also conservation as the actions. But cities define these actions for certain objectives, so they want to be successful as well with these actions. So therefore, there is a need to measure whether these actions, interventions are successful. Because of that, in the project, all partners, we have identified the key performance indicators that could be such as the increased number of visitors, at certain location after the intervention, increase well-being of people, and so on. So in terms of monitoring of these interventions to understand their success, but also implementing and communicating these activities, RUG project uses the digital tools. I will give some examples here. So this one is from Lisbon. Lisbon used Marvila as a case area, which is an industrial heritage site, which is now transforming into a hype district with new uses, festivals, shared working places, and so on. But yeah, the new use gives the heritage a contemporary story, but sometimes the memory of the past is forgotten. So Lisbon partners thought this past story of the area should be communicated and supported with evidence. So they collected the narrates, images, documents of the past from earlier residents of the area, from earlier employees of the area, also from archives and so on, as such. And then they brought them together in a digital application, which is located in the Marvila library that can be used by the visitors. Another example is the physical accessibility of historic city center for Bologna. They especially wanted to improve the physical accessibility of historic city center for vulnerable groups, societal groups like elderly, children, disabled people. So we teamed up with Bologna as Eindhoven University of Technology. By using GPS and geo-surveys, we mapped the subjective and objective experiences of these vulnerable groups in the historic city center. Then the results were discussed with many stakeholders, variety of stakeholders, and they came up with the idea of an accessibility app for Bologna. Another example is that we have several sensor providers in the project, and one of them provides an in-situ sensor that counts the people, so in predetermined locations. With that, we could monitor the activity, the mobility of visitors during an event and on a normal day, so we could see the differences during an event, and that would give an idea also if unused or misused places are being functional in the events, whether they are used or not. Another interesting example of this monitoring was during the pandemic, when it first started in Bologna. At the end of February, we could monitor that there are few people in the historic center. The number drastically changed. Another type of sensor is the emotion sensor that can measure people's feelings from their facial movements. So that can determine whether people are feeling happy or sad and so on. So that's also related with the culture and the subjective well-being of people. All in all, so we collect all these data, but where do we monitor them? We have a web platform, which is an open data platform. It collects the data and brings them in, it categorizes them per city and per the team. And it can also enable visualizing the data according to the data, so not each visualization techniques is suitable for each data. So then it's very easy to visualize a certain data type, and also it's possible to make a query. So the city partners were happy with that, so they could actually monitor the actions when they are taking place, and for them it was easy to use. So the project is almost finished. We are finishing at the end of this year, and we have some lessons learned already that we can share with you. So communicating and monitoring of the activities and changes enable the evidence-based planning for historic city centers. And open data and collaborative approaches such as living lab settings support new ideas and developments for carrying the past to the future in an inclusive way. And Martina would like to conclude as well.
Yes, and other lessons learned concern the possibility to embed in the city planning system, related of course to cultural heritage, the chance to constantly monitor small-scale experimentation and provide feedbacks to adapt also to city planning. And finally, a reflection about the post-pandemic future, where this information system for cultural heritage would be key to gather feedbacks on the use of urban space by its citizens and users. So with this reflection in mind, we would like also to invite you to the final online event of ROC, the ROC Open Knowledge Week, to be held from the 27th to the 30th of October. It is open to everyone, so you're welcome to come and have fun with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martina and Kamse, for this very interesting topic, which brings, this topic is very multifaceted and multisensory and brings so much expertise together, I think, to approach historic centers. Thank you very much. So our next presenter is Bizan. Dr. Bizan Rouhani is a Deputy Director and Senior Researcher at the EAMENA project at the School of Archaeology, University of Oxford. He is Vice President of the ICOMOS International Committee on Risk Preparedness. He also represents ICOMOS on the International Board of Blue Shield. He was the director of the Amal Inheritance Program at the Global Heritage Fund and has also been working with American Schools of Oriental Research, cultural heritage initiatives for documenting war damage to cultural heritage in Syria and Iraq. Bizan, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good afternoon or good morning. First of all, I would like to
no, sorry, Bizan, sorry. We can see you, but not the screen right now.
Not the screen?
No.
But I shared. Okay, what about now?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. Sorry for that. I would like to start with thanking the organizers, CIPA and National Trust of Canada for inviting me to this webinar. I'm presenting Endangered Archaeology in the Middle East and North Africa project, or EAMENA project. So the project was founded by Arcadia Fund in 2015 and then by the British Council's Cultural Protection Fund, or CPF, in 2016 in response to conflicts and other threats in the Middle East and North Africa region, or MENA region. The project is based in the University of Oxford and it is in partnership with the universities of Leicester and Durham. Arcadia grant continues until 2024 and CPF until January 2021. And we are hugely grateful to our funders for their generous support. We also have a sister project, which is called MARIA, and it means Maritime Endangered Archaeology, and it documents maritime archaeological resources in the MENA region. And it is at universities of Southampton and Ulster, funded by Arcadia Fund. In one word, EAMENA project is a voyage of discovery and digital documenting damage and destruction to heritage sites, and it covers over 20 countries from Iran to Mauritania. Our main activities are discovering and identifying endangered sites and monitoring changes. We also create a record of sites and monuments for each country, and we make this information freely accessible. We have a training program for heritage professionals in this region. The project does awareness raising and encourages informed debate and conferences, including Protecting the Past series, with our conference partners, Global Heritage Fund, GHF, and ICROM Sharjah. But why EMENA project? Because this region has significant archaeological remains from prehistoric to modern time, including some of the most important civilizations, but the pace of change in MENA has been increasing since the past decades. So the impact of conflict, looting, climate change, agricultural activities, uncontrolled development, and construction needs to be recorded so we can better understand and manage these changes. This, for example, this aerial photograph of 2013 in the slide shows a road over remains of an ancient church in Ma'an area in Jordan, just as an example of how road constructions and development can impact archaeological sites. Our methodology for monitoring is quite simple, and you can do what we do at home if you have the right skills for image interpretation and working with the database. We mainly use freely available satellite imagery like Google Earth, Bing, and other platforms. We have divided the globe, the region, sorry, to grid squares, as you can see in this slide. And each of our researchers takes a grid square for discovering a new site or for monitoring changes, threats, and disturbances to them. By using this methodology, we have discovered many sites in the region that we believe have not been documented before to the best of our knowledge. This is an example of a large fortified settlement in Dhamar Governorate of Yemen, probably dating to the Bronze Age, and this was discovered by our researchers, Dr. Michael Fradley. This is another example of a new site that was discovered in Al-Baida region of Yemen. But we are also monitoring threats to archaeological sites, including agricultural activities like plowing, tracing, orchards, animal irrigation, impact of conflict like explosives, vandalism, or reusing sites for military purposes, and construction like housing, road construction, dam construction, mining activities, pipelines, cemeteries, refugee camps, and of course, looting. We also monitoring looting and natural factors and natural erosion. The largest identified category of disturbances in our research is agricultural and pastoral activities, followed closely by natural factors and development and construction. This example on Google Earth shows irrigation channels surrounding Bunajm site in Libya. These features can cause damage to subsurface material. I'm showing you two other examples, this time from Syria. And this is Apamea archaeological site. The image is from 2011, before it was looted. And this one is from 2013, after the site was heavily looted. And these images, as I said, are available on Google Earth. Another example, this time from Jordan, Yajuz archaeological site, north of Amman, the capital of the country. This Byzantine city, as you see in this imagery from 2004, they were planning for housing and road construction. And on this imagery from 2015, you can see new houses and roads that have disturbed this, this ancient site. But we are also using aerial photographs for monitoring changes. One of our main resources is called Aerial Photographic Archive for Archaeology in the Middle East, or APAME project, funded by Professor David Kennedy, and since 1998 has been directed by him and by Dr. Robert Bewley, who was also the director of EMENA project from 2015 until 2020. The archive, the APAMI archive, currently consists of over 115,000 aerial images and maps. And I'm showing you two examples of monitoring by using APAMI archive. This is an early Islamic caravanserai in Ma'an area in Jordan. This image is from 2016. And the second image taken 2018, and you can see that this Islamic caravanserai was destroyed by the owner to put a water tank here because he was expanding his agricultural activities around this site. We collect all this information and we record sites and their condition in the IAMINA database. This map that is from our database shows you the distribution of sites and records in our database. We are also using Arches for our database. Currently, we are moving to Arches version 5. And as Anna explained, Arches is developed by the Getty Conservation Institute and the World Monuments Fund. Currently, we have over 309,000 records in our database from 18 countries. Our database records fundamental information, including site location, forms and interpretation, measurements, and condition assessment for each site. We have three main sources of information: remote sensing that I explained, like Google Earth, Bing, and sometimes commercial satellite companies. We use also published reports, existing data sets, gazetteers, and archives like APAMI. And we also use data collected from field surveys and field assessment done by our teams or by our local partners. For field survey and on-site condition assessment, our teams have been using paper forms, but we are actively advocating the use of mobile technology for site assessment because of its many advantages. One example in this field is AMAL in Heritage, which is a mobile app developed by Global Heritage Fund, GHF. AMAL captures images of a site, building, or an object, cultural object. The user can do a simple assessment and then submit a report to the web app where more detailed assessment and information can be added. And you can download the app from this website if you want. In 2018, IAMINA and GHF developed an interoperability tool named Heritage Bridge or HAIR Bridge, and it's an open source web-based system for data that sits between AMAL app and the IAMINA database. HairBridge holds submitted items from AMAL until they can be verified by the IAMINA staff or a trained regional partner. The AMAL mobile application and HairBridge enable us and our partners and heritage wardens in the region to actively participate in site monitoring and reporting. This was tested last year successfully in Erbil area in Iraq. And I just want to finish my presentation with the grant that we received from the Cultural Protection Fund, CPF. Through this grant, we work with local partners in 8 countries, including Jordan, Palestine, Libya, Tunisia, Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon, Egypt, to improve remote sensing skills, as well as using the IAMINA database and its methodology for site recording and monitoring. As a result, 160 heritage professionals have been trained and over 14,500 sites have been recorded and documented by them. Also in 3 countries, including Jordan, Palestine, and Yemen, the authorities are adopting the IAMINA database for their own national digital heritage inventory. And we are developing these national databases based on IAMINA system and Arches software for them. So our CPF-funded project has been about enabling our local partners for monitoring changes and heritage management, but more than that, it has been about creating networks and sharing knowledge. Thank you very much.
Bijan, thank you very much for that fantastic presentation. I want to remind everybody that if you have questions along the way about what Bijan presented or what other presenters have already discussed, please use the question and answer feature at the bottom of your Zoom webinar page, so that way we can get to those towards the end of the webinar. And so as you can see on the screen, our next speaker and fourth speaker is Joanna Cooper. Joanna graduated from Carleton University with a bachelor's degree of IT in interactive multimedia and design. Since 2018, she's been working as a research assistant and project manager for the Carleton Immersive Media Studio. Throughout her experience with Sims, she's been developing various web applications alongside design and user interfaces and leading a large-scale project commissioned by Ontario East Economic Development. Joanna, please.
Hi, everybody. Share my screen. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about the Ontario East Economic Development application that we're working with Sims. Sorry, just skip that to the front. Okay, so I'll be talking about the project background and history behind this application. So the Battler factory seen here in this video was built in 1939 to 1940 following a design developed by the Bata Shoe Company using specialist equipment built in and shipped from Czechoslovakia. It was renovated and expanded in 1965 by the modernist architect John Parkin and then completely transformed in the early 80s. This was done by Maruyama and Tashima architects in an effort to save energy. The three-phase building information model that you can see in this video was developed by Sims in 2011 using data from laser scanning, hand measures, and historical drawings and photographs. So how does this relate to the Ontario East 3D application? Ontario East Economic Development Commission saw our project with Bata Shoe Factory and wanted to utilize these skills that we have at Sims to try and support an application for economic development within Eastern Ontario. So to do this, we're generating a web application that visualizes different data from municipal levels and allows economic development officers to easily understand and communicate information using visual representations. So the first phase that we're working on is the agricultural sector. There will be other phases, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. But also another main feature of this application is that you can search for assets within East Ontario, such as cheese production, and you're able to show this to all guests of the application and any other user that's associated as well. So there are three main components to our application. The first one being the map types or map styles that we use. So this is generated by the architects at Sims, and this enables us to display different map styles associated with different data sets. So this could be anything from weather styles, so this could be precipitation, temperature, that kind of thing, and any other data set that we also include, so stuff from Statistics Canada as well. The other component that we have are the 3D models. So obviously visualizing data using maps can be very similar to Google Earth and Bing, but we also generate 3D models and building information models that can overlay the data that we display in the application as well. So this allows us to simulate and project different data sets across the application and allows users to visualize data in a different way. So data visualization is something that I've briefly mentioned. So we have many different data sets that we include in this application, and it's a way of encouraging people to combine data to allow users to visualize different things. So one of the main sources that we have is Statistics Canada. So this allows us to visualize different census data. So alongside the maps and other visuals that we use, we also have this screen here that shows the data dashboard. So this can generate different maps and different visuals associated with the data, alongside municipal data and other levels within Canada as well. So we have provincial and federal data, utility data. So obviously this could be anything to do with hydro, water, that kind of thing, and Connect Ontario. Connect Ontario is a really great source of ours that allows us to recognize agriculture and manufacturing data across Eastern Ontario. This is categorized by NICS codes. So this is a system that allows us to identify a hierarchical codes for each asset within the application. So at the higher level, there will be crop farming, for instance, and then within crop farming, there'd be another code which could represent soybean farming. And the final component is the user interface. So this is obviously what ties everything together and allows the user to visualize the data in a more meaningful way. So to do this, the web application is using React.js. So this is a JavaScript library used for web development. And we're also using various backend components and a large database that includes all the data. So I'll take you for a walk through our application very quickly. So this is our login page. So this is where the users would log into the application and be presented with the initial tutorial that you can also refer back to at any stage. There's the About section that describes the project and who OED is. This is a search feature, so if you were looking for cheese production within East Ontario, this will list the assets associated in the application, a small property information window, and then a larger view that enables you to see any images associated with the property, save it to your account, print, share it, download, and you can also view maps like Bing or Google and any models associated with the asset as well. So the other aspect of this application are the map tools. So being able to obviously view full screen, any points of interest, so locating airports that are close by to the assets. The location marker tool, so being able to drop a pin on the map and estimate the address. And the radar tool. So this enables you to determine a radius around a point. And the line tool, so being able to draw polygons across the map and determine the measurement. So this would be something similar that you might see in like Google or Bing, for example. And as I've mentioned before, these are the map styles generated by our architects. So this could be, again, weather-related or industry-related data, and the ability to interact with 3D models in the application as well. So this is the user account. So one aspect of that is the saved properties. And the data analysis section that I've talked about as well. So being able to view municipal data and public data and compare the two between municipalities. You also have the option of downloading this data as this section contains public data. There's also a user section, so this is mainly for admin accounts, being able to approve requests for user accounts, and being able to search for other economic development offices within your region as well. Okay. So how does this relate to cultural heritage? So one main aspect for us is the documentation and data gathering that is incorporated. So being able to incorporate many different data sets within this application enables a wide range of users to visualize that data and see what works for them. So in this way, you can analyze the data and see how it affects different cultural heritage assets. So for instance, if you're looking at these flood maps, you'd be able to see how does this affect this asset over time. It could also help with nomination for heritage sites. So how do you decide across the region what becomes a heritage asset? And obviously there's also any demographic data and that kind of thing that you can analyze alongside this heritage asset. Digitizing assets. So this is something that SIMS is obviously focused on. So this is an example of the Big Apple within Eastern Ontario. Being able to generate these building information models allows multiple different metadata to be associated with the model that can then allow us to simulate and project different data values across the future. So this can also help us with heritage assets in preservation and being able to project different simulations across the time. There's also future phases for this application. So as I've mentioned before, we're focusing on agriculture right now. However, we have plans to include manufacturing and hopefully tourism as well. And as this application is scalable, this also means that we can incorporate different regions. So we have plans to create a application for the entire length of Canada, which will obviously a much larger scale and will incorporate a lot more data as well. So some of the project challenges that we've been facing is privacy. That has been a huge thing for us. Some of the data sets that are included can only be accessed by certain individuals. So we have to come up with a secure database and a secure application that can only be used by certain people, and public data that can be accessed by every single user, and being able to see these map styles associated with different assets. So that's something that we've had to handle quite diligently. The application development, so up till now, we haven't really seen any of the application that supports building information modeling, customized map styles, large amounts of data sets. So we've had to completely customize our own application and develop this from scratch, meaning everything from user interface design, coding languages, and what's the best approach and what technology should be used. And then obviously, as I've mentioned, user interface design, we have a large number of stakeholders on this application. So yes, our main concern might be economic development, but as I've mentioned, it can also affect various different industries and cultural heritage as well. So we have to develop something that can be used by all and meets all the requirements and creates an application that is usable across the board. Okay, so thank you everyone for listening to my presentation. I appreciate any of the comments you guys have, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Joanna, for explaining this very large-scale project. So next follows the discussion session, and I would briefly want to state the rules before giving the floor to Ona. So please always keep your microphones muted. Write your real name and affiliation for your questions so that we can recognize you. Express your questions only through the Q&A option. Upvote questions of others that you find interesting. Do not use the chat box for your questions, and please try to be kind and courteous. Okay, so I'm giving the floor to Ona to moderate the Q&A session. Ona?
Thank you, Stathis. So we have several questions. Also for me, we'll go. There are some questions that were already answered as well. And let's start with those, because I think it's important that we go back and for the ones who haven't read all the questions. So the first question was, is the arches available for public and free to use? And if you could give more information. In the Q&A chat box, I have posted the website of the Arches project. Yes, it is for the public and free to use, but as it has been also mentioned, it does require some IT expertise still, it's getting much better since it started. But we need to program the information. There's some basic modules you can use. I can speak for myself for our project. I'm not the one developing the system itself, but we are, for example, using the different options of different languages, which is a great advantage because you can switch to different languages as you require, but you need to create a thesaurus, and you definitely need to program this information to make it for your own work. And so you can find all the information under that link, and there's more information, more questions linked to the arches. So I would like to continue with this topic, and this question goes to Villan. Nargis is asking, what are the advantages of using arches? Do you use it in Yamina for monitoring? And what would be the advantages instead of using a GIS for monitoring?
Thank you, Nargis, for the question. Yes, we are using arches in Yamina as for our database. We use different tools for monitoring, as I explained, like Google Earth, aerial photography, and also site visit and field work. But when we collect information, we put them in the database, which is an arches-based database, and we do data analyzing by using arches and by using our database. If I want to talk about advantages of arches, there are many. Ona said some of them. Arches is an open source software, and it is freely available, so you don't need to be worried about subscription or paying for using that, which is, I believe, is an advantage. And I can say that, to my experience, it is a kind of simplified GIS system. I mean, comparing to other systems, I can talk about my experience in the region, in the Middle East and North Africa. For example, when we were working with our Palestinian partners, local partners, they said that they don't have enough GIS resources and skilled, experienced staff in their Department of Antiquity. But when we introduced this new system to them, our database, which is an Arches database, so they really liked it because almost all of their staff now can they work with Yamina database or Arches database. So if you compare the complexity of other systems to Arches, this is something to consider, and it's an important factor. And another one is that Arches has a growing community. There are many heritage projects in the world that now are using Arches. So you have the support of Arches users community. I don't know if other panelists who have used Arches want to add to this, but these are some basic points that you can think of.
Thank you, Villan. Yes, I think one of the important things are these international standards that we're using so that we can actually share the information worldwide as well. So in that way, our system in Central Asia at certain point can be shared with you, having same protocols, the side of international standards, and definitely the community is something important because we can share, you know, our goods and bads. And actually, that's how also the Arches has been improving itself. So there are new versions coming that are also thanks to the feedback from the community. And there was one question for you, Villan, just to close. Is there a plan for workshops soon in Egypt?
Okay, thanks for this question. Yes, there was a plan, I should say. but currently, because of the pandemic situation, COVID-19, we don't know if we are able to travel to the Middle East or not. I mean, the university, Oxford University, policy is that for now, all business travel just not possible. So we are just waiting to see what may happen soon. Maybe we are able to do a workshop this year before the end of this year. If not, maybe it should be postponed until 2021. But we hope, and this is our plan, to come back to Egypt soon, as soon as we can.
Thank you, Bijan. Also to say that there's, if you go to the website of Arches, it's not that I want to promote it that much, but you can go there and you can get emails. You can go to the to the different social media that Arches has, and then you can also check what is happening and where Arches is. And there's also regional workshops happening all over, and they're working right now on also webinars online, and you can find a lot of this information online. So now I would like to go back to a question that was for Gamze and the ROC project. And it says, what headings did you use in the spreadsheet you showed us? What pieces of info are you putting in it? It was answered, but I would like Gamze to work a little bit more on that, please. And your mic is mute.
Not okay. I think you should hear me. So yeah, that spreadsheet was about the Lisbon action, and this was actually done by our Lisbon partners. As mentioned by Martina, the project has 32 partners, and so yeah, we are not really doing it all of us, yeah, only Martina and me, but it's a teamwork of 32 partners. So that was from Lisbon. But what I know is that for certain specific buildings and for specific events, they were collecting the narrates and images and all sort of materials from the previous users of the area. So they have this living lab setting, and they invited people there, and they started listening them. They started reporting all of these, and all these were categorized in terms of what they are, and they were matched to these specific buildings and so on. So it's a very simple database. But I can also make a connection between our partners and Karin, if that's necessary, if she would like to, that's also possible.
Thank you, Gamze. So we have one question to Joanna. They said the OA3D is a great project, and it is designed, then the question is it designed to use worldwide? And how is it possible to use it? Is it based on Google Maps?
So the application uses a JavaScript library called Cesium. So this is similar to Google Maps, but it enables us to use our own map styles, map tiles, our own 3D models that can be visualized online. So it will be used on a website URL. So it can be used worldwide. You just need to have user access, which would be granted by admin privileges.
Oh, now you're muted.
There's another question for you, Joanna. I think a slide said that economic development officers would be able to use your web application to communicate visual information. How do these folks, presumably with a mix of expertise, contribute to the portal? Or is it more than they can access shared visual data created by others?
Yep. So economic development officers are usually based within municipalities, so they have access to certain data that we probably don't. So they're able to submit their data and edit information based on their municipality and within the rights that they have as users. That enables the application to then visualize that data in different ways, so map styles, charts, and different visualizations.
And then we continue with you. You said you received some of your information from the Census of Statistics Canada. How are you able to get that information? Because I thought it was private and sealed.
So there is general census information that is public. So this can include anything from demographic data, so transportation data as well, commute times, that kind of thing, population data. That can all be retrieved from the Statistics Canada website. There are some census data that cannot be accessed, or you need permission to access. So this could be something like the agricultural data. So that would require permissions and privileges from Statistics Canada.
Thank you, Joanna. Now I have a question for you, Anna. In which ways the information management system was designed to serve? To what extent the system has been used? It might be too early to judge, but has the system proved successful, or at least promising in your view? And of course, to the other panelists, if they have something to say in this subject too.
Thank you, Salim, for the question. I think it's really relevant. Well, I showed 3 different projects, and I think all of them have, in a way, already have proven that there's something successful out of an information or using an information management system. So, for example, the Bukhara and Uzbekistan case study, the GIS, it was the first time we managed to bring all information together of the Historic Center, being able to analyze it. I didn't show those slides, and you can find more information online. If you Google my name and probably Bukhara, there are certain, also in CIPA, I presented the documentation in CIPA in 2017 in Ottawa, where, for example, all the information that you can actually use you have the system, you can look for information in the system and extract information. So this information you can, we extracted, was used to discuss with the authorities and the stakeholders when we were building together and developing the management plan for the city. So the first time they were seeing numbers, they were seeing issues, not just, this number of houses have, for example, do not have access to water, or the different issues. But we had numbers on which are the areas that are more problematic. So also with managing change, and which houses have been changing their materials, for example. All the things we did during the survey. And it was important because then we can say, look, there's a change in the city, so we need to do something. But literally with a proof, and also understanding where this is located. So for the example of Uzbekistan, was really, really good to have this information system. One of the problems I see is that people receive training. The database is part of the heritage authorities. There's someone receiving training and this person leaves. So you need to train another person. So all these, the staff changing all the time is really difficult to work with. And systems like GIS do require more training than probably the arches. So you need someone specialized fixed there. So definitely this would be one of the disadvantages, and what is the state now. With the other systems, the Silgro's Crease, it was successful in a way that the aim, which was putting together a nomination dossier, happened. And actually the Silgro's got listed in 2014, the first corridor of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and China. And then for the CAL, we are facing a, well, we started 1.5 years ago, so we are, kind of starting. But you already see probably some advantages with the work we're doing of discovering new sites, or understanding, what are the, as I showed with the satellite images, where are the main problems happening now, what are the main threats affecting the sites. So I think they are all proof that are successful, but you have to know who are you doing the information systems for. So you need to know who will be your end users in order to have the right tool for them to use it. So I do encourage a lot that the users will be involved during the development of these systems.
Great, thank you, Anna. I have a question also for Gamze. Could you please elaborate more on how do the emotion and experience detectors work? We all want to know that.
The sensors for emotion, they are from Vilnius Technical University, and especially Professor Dr. Artūras Kakulauskas is responsible for that. And they provide two different types of emotion sensors. One is the in situ one that can be placed on light poles or electricity poles in the cities. And these measure the facial temperature, respiratory rate, heartbeat, and therefore the emotions of people. So, because it measures the temperature and also the movement of the face, then it can understand whether a person is happy or not. Of course, that is not, the sensor is done and that's it. It's not like that. When the sensor is done, then there were many data collection in order to adjust it, to make it better. So they also did several surveys to people who were passing by, whether their emotions were actually matching with the detected ones. So then the correlations are made. So yeah, but yeah, this is what I can explain in place of Artūras. And then the portative one, the one that can be moved, that also works with a similar system, but that can be placed in different areas. So it does not only detect the emotions, but in some events it has become an attraction itself. So people wanted to see how it works, and then it was, if you're happy, it was giving a bright color. If you were sad, it was a down color like blue, purple. So it became an attraction itself as well. Other than that, what we did in Bologna was also related to the experiences of people. And but that was more direct. So we asked people if there was a place that was triggering negative emotion or positive emotion for them. So they could geotag that location and then fill in the form like what kind of feeling it was and why it happened. So yeah, those are two different things, but in the project we have this subjective well-being perspective of the heritage as well. So I think these type of approaches are nice. But what happened within the consortium in the beginning, those emotion sensors took a bit attention, like all of you were wondering, and also in the consortium. So it also raised some privacy and ethics questions. Then we could figure that out later on. But in general, also I want to know, because yeah, in this project we work with many sensors, so they are there and they are collecting data about people's behavior, people's feelings. So we put notification, okay, there is a sensor here and you are detected, so there is a notification, but still, yeah, it's about people's emotions and behavior. So these type of things raise privacy questions also. I don't know if in the other projects as well, maybe in Joanna's project, because there were data about indoor situations. So I wonder if there were any privacy related issues in the projects. So I can ask a question as well.
Yes, of course. So Joanna, you want to answer Gamze's question?
Sure. So there are a lot of privacy issues with our application, considering some of the data can only be accessed by certain individuals and municipalities and regions. So we have to implement like a hierarchical user system. Guests can only view public data or any maps that don't include private information, whereas admin users have access to most, if not all, data. Any users that require access to the application have to ask for permission from admin users. Their registration account is then reviewed and accepted or declined by admin users, and which can also change their privileges to the application as well.
Thank you, Joanna. I have also one more question for Ona and Bijan also. How to manage this huge amount of data collection, and is there any collaboration or coordination with the governments? I mean, like in Central Asia and the MENA region, you know, there's some areas with highly security measurements and some religious restrictions in some sites and some conservative areas. So how do you manage to document and publish those sites?
Jan, you want to go first?
Thank you. Yeah, good question. Yes, we have local partners in many countries in the region, in the Middle East and North Africa. And most of our partners are from departments of antiquities or Ministry of Culture. So we work with the governments and we are very well aware of their rules and restrictions, and we respect those rules and their restrictions. As I said, data in our database is freely accessible, but doesn't mean that everything is visible to everyone. So for example, some of our local partners have asked us before that because of, and this is somehow is related to data privacy, but for a different reason, that because of concern about looting that they have in the region, so we do not expose the location or the exact site location for public visitors. So exact site locations can be accessed only if you are a registered visitor or registered user of the database. And to become a registered user, there is a process of application. You send your application, the management committee approves that application. So we highly respect the concerns that they have in different countries. We work closely with them and we want to address their concerns and questions. And as I said, in some cases or in many cases, data have been collected by our partners and we exchange data and we receive data sets from other scholars, researchers, or other projects. Yeah, that's from me. Over to you, Anna.
Jan. So I think to continue what you're saying, for the Silk Road Cruise, which the aim of the nomination is to have transnational work. Let's say there were no, this was a closed system, so it was not open to the world, still not. But I think when we started, and I'm talking to you, this project started in 2010, so already 10 years ago. There was a little, you know, everybody was afraid what is happening with this information and where is it going. That's probably also the advantages of using the information systems, is that you can have roles for the users. So some people can view all, but cannot edit any information. Some others can just can edit information. I think working this way, it's nowadays we use more that, and for sure it will continue being a normal way of working, where you can share some documents, and we see it with normal Google Docs and so on. You can select who will be viewing what and being able to edit. Also, one of the things we found was the control of the data and who will accept or not when the information is entered into the system. So this is also and how the organizations are working in each country, and who has, let's say, this power to say this information is correct or not. So for the quiz, it was quite straightforward, because we were all wanted to share in a way our information, and we learned that after some time. The advantage also was that, you know, not only the people from Central Asia, but other experts outside could also support the nomination and help to review, you know, any document or any text that was available online. As for the CAL project, the last one I was talking, that I explained at the end, which is also in Central Asia, is not yet widely open all the features to the public, and definitely will be a restriction of what we are sharing. So it's exactly the same situation Bijan is pointing out, is that we do need to select who is actually viewing this information for, you know, what reason. If all wants to be shared, we have been finding new sites. Looting is one big issue and factor affecting those sites. So do we want to share all the exact location of the sites? And I think at this point, it would be up to each country also to decide, because even if we want to share as much as we want, we know that's, you know, not realistic. So that's from my side. Joe, do we have any other questions?
No, that's it. So you can go on.
Yeah, at this point, I think we would like to invite Mario Santana to give some concluding remarks.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the conclusions and some of the closing remarks. And also, I'm sorry to be late. I was in another meeting. So in this session, we had basically we had speakers from different areas and different angles in terms of the information systems for cultural heritage. And I will start with the remarks from Dr. Ona Viletis. So information systems are only tools that allow us to be more efficient and accurate while monitoring and managing cultural heritage. They do not work alone. Proper conservation strategies, cultural heritage policies, and the necessary allocations of resources are needed to make them to succeed. As a first step, it's always crucial to understand why we're using information management systems in order to choose the right tools and platforms. You need to know your community and how the system will empower them to actually protect those sites. Then we were followed by the presentation by Gamze and Martina, in which they talked and concluded the following things. Communicating and monitoring of the activities and changes enable the evidence-based planning of historic city centers. Open data and collaborative approaches, such as living labs, support new ideas and developments for carrying the past to future in an inclusive way. Possibility to monitor the experimentations constantly increases the adaptability of urban planning and policies on heritage. In the post-COVID-19, experimental actions and monitoring will be a key to collect feedbacks from use of cultural heritage to increase safety and also its accessibility. Then Bijan talked about monitoring, or concluded the following points, Monitoring condition of cultural heritage is critical to better understand changes and managing them. It is an enabler for decision makers to prioritize actions. Monitoring involves measuring changes on the current condition of cultural heritage changes and the threat and risks affecting them, and the effectiveness of implementing measures and mitigation actions. Then finally, Joanna says, mapping Eastern Ontario and digitizing data in one application enables users to compare data sets across various sources and industries. This not only encourages economical development across the region, but also allows for conserving cultural heritage through data analysis and simulations. And I will add some other take on points after the questions and answer sessions that were moderated by Ona. There were big talks about privacy, the issues of copyright, and I would in particular talk about looting, identification of location of sites. I think that the identification of the user and why is it involved in the information system is crucial, and I think that Ona and Bijan extensively talked about this. Now, in terms of privacy, I want to mention one point. As you know, as tracking apps are becoming more and more popular for nations to enforce and identify where citizens are located, it's surprisingly that, for instance, just to give you an example, 90% of the population in Norway has agreed to be followed by these tracking apps in terms of COVID-19. So to a certain degree, I think that privacy plays a very important role, but we all understand that in this situation where we all are, there is a need for tracking the location of people and tracking and this is going to become more and more. Another point that I think is also important is the facial recognition application. So you can see that in many sites, in many countries around the world, organizations such as social media, Facebook, and other organizations are not providing police services with facial recognition applications. So I think that this issue of identification of people and so on is a big issue, and will probably deserve another webinar in these very interesting sessions that we are having now. So let me get back to the organizers, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mario. And taking this opportunity, I would like to invite all of you to share your research and submit your papers, contributions to the Journal of Cultural Heritage Management and Sustainable Development, when I'm co-editor with Mario Santana. I guess we could also add the link to the chat box, but you see it here. We also invite you to stay connected. So we are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, CIPA EP, the CIPA Heritage Documentation, via ICOMOS, the National Trust for Canada, and the NSERC Create Engineering. With this, I would like to close our webinar. I would like to thank everyone again, all participants. I would like to thank the speakers who took their time to be with us during these hours, and I would like to invite you to stay tuned and stay connected with us.